Did you ever eat grass as a kid? Because I sure as heck did. I loved making potions from all the little berries and the bugs that I could find, and I would put a bunch of mud and sticks and I would stir it up, and yes, I would eat it.
I got
Which
food poisoning from a vine that I ate because I was convinced that it was edible and my friends believed me. Thank goodness that none of them ate it, but I got food poisoning from a vine, and to this day I don't know what that vine was. Don't.
and sadly, this is not an experience that is specific to you. Lots of
Nope.
kids like eating little berries and branches and vines that they can find. And you know what? They're on track to being a good forager.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Student Sparks podcast, where naturopathy meets neuroscience. I'm Parker Malev, the naturopath.
And I'm Emma Johnson, the neuroscientist. Join us on this adventure as we delve into the depths of nutrition, nature, medicine, and the mind,
where every insight sparks discussion and debate.
So if you haven't figured it out yet, we will be talking about foraging today.
Eating grass time. Foraging is something you're probably already familiar with, whether you've seen it in, movies or, you read your ye old English books in class where all the little peasant kids are like, Mama, I'm going to go out and pick some berries today. I don't know why I said that, but anyway.
I was thinking more like Katniss Everdeen, like
hunting. Oh, that would have
been
been such a better example.
Berries.
Dang it. Okay, when you're reading your ye old Hunger Games books, it's essentially just going out and picking either edible or medicinal foods that you could buy online in today's day, but instead you're going out and sourcing it right in your backyard. Not so much your local grocery store, but online you can buy just about any herb known to man at this point. So if you have the option to buy everything you would need ever concerning plants online, say at Amazon or something, why would you choose to find it outside? Why would you not, just buy it online? There's a few reasons, and one of them is it's just cheaper. Okay, they exist in your natural environment. You live in this environment. You do have the ability to just go and yoink them. Okay, I'm gonna say take them. I'm gonna recede that statement. You can leave that in there, but I'm just gonna pretend I didn't say it. It's cheaper. It's a very sustainable practice as well, because if you're cultivating something specifically, then you are taking up large amounts of land. You are harvesting quite a bit. You're using a lot of water, a lot of resources for something you can go and find right outside. That being said, it is not going to be as readily available, so you kind of got to find a happy medium. But foraging should be your first avenue, per se, your first attempt at finding something.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a great hobby.
It's such really a great
fun. Hobby. Yeah, so it's better for the environment to try that out first. It's not as long as you're not over harvesting, but we'll go into that a little bit later. It is cheaper.
Mm-hmm. And we talked a little bit in our last episode about evolutionary nutrition and stuff like that. Things that you find out in your area, you might not be able to get exotic foods from Africa or whatever, but you can find all of the stuff you need to within the area that you are, because like we've lived here for so long without these exotic foods. And if you are able to find all of the foods you need to, they're also, the nutrients within those foods are usually more bioavailable because they're not processed, they're not treated with pesticides. There's just a lot more going on within naturally grown products than there are when you're farm raising a lot of products, especially like animals and large swaths of crops where they aren't able to reproduce in the way that they're meant to. They're being sort of stuffed into a tiny little area and have to take up little bits of nutrients instead of as much as they need to from the soil, which means they don't have as much nutrients within themselves. So for humans as well. And then it also just going outside and getting your own food, it causes you to have to exercise. You're walking around, you're outside in nature, you're being able to be in tune with the world around you, which is just overall better for your mental health, your physical health, everything.
Yeah, another point on the nutrient side of things is that even though you're likely to find less less amounts naturally in the wild of something you might need, if it has more nutrients than something you're buying in bulk, then comparatively you are still getting a high amount. If let's just say, for example, you're finding dandelions in the wild versus buying a big bulk bag of dandelion tea. If you're making tea out of both, it is a good practice to have a lower concentration of your tea from the wild foods than you are the store-bought processed ones. And when we say processed, we just mean that it's a controlled environment. So this is a human reproducing its natural habitat versus these plants chose to grow there and are growing perfectly well where they are, and they have all the nutrients they need. Nothing wrong with growing things yourself in cultivation. It comparatively, I don't want people to think that you're losing the bulk amounts of things just because you're going out and getting it yourself. That being said, just because we are promoting foraging doesn't mean we're promoting just standing up, leaving your house, and going to eat what's in your yard. There are a bunch of safety regulations that they're not really regulations, they're like recommendations, but they're definitely well, if you don't want to die, you should probably listen to them. So let's go into a few of those so that, well, you don't die.
I think one of the biggest, most important parts of foraging is that when you are picking a plant or a bug or any sort of meat, you need to be 100% certain that it is what you think it is. You need to have some sort of book. You need to be very well versed. Look up the animal or plant or bug, because if you don't, there are huge repercussions, especially with like fungi, like mushrooms,
Oh gosh.
and
Mm-mm.
berries. Like you'll have a little tiny red berry and it's like, oh, this is such a cute berry. You eat it, and then there's another type of red berry on another bush. You eat it, and then you die.
Right. Yeah. I would honestly just say don't touch mushrooms or berries. My grandmother is a very experienced, I would call her an herbalist. She's not a registered herbalist. She actually wants to do that. Or at
Mhm.
least last time I spoke to her, she was thinking about it because of how much she knows about plants. And I grew up with her showing me around the garden and stuff, and she was always like, "Just don't touch the mushrooms. Don't touch the mushrooms.
Yeah.
Don't touch the mushrooms, you'll die." And then everybody else was like, "Don't touch the berries. Don't touch the berries." Um, oh, and then there's all the kids on the playground that'll say, "Don't touch the mushroom, it's poisonous." Like, no, it's poisonous if you eat it. Y'all leave me alone. I picked a lot of mushrooms as a kid. I always got mad when people kicked them, though. Like, people love kicking down mushrooms. Sorry, that's unrelated. Anyways, even with her, she always just said, just mushrooms and berries, just don't do it unless you're in like a big group of people and you're all very certain. Like, you have a lot of combined experience and you're very, very certain. When it comes to plants, there's always a lot of lookalikes. So make sure you have, a trusty field guide. Just not any kind of book. Make sure your book is published from a well-respected source. I have this one. It's Backyard Pharmacy, for those of you who can't see it. It's from 2015. It's a little bit older, but it's still, it's just the basics. It's got your backyard garden things like pine trees and sage and chickweed, like basic things that are very, very easy to identify. It's a good place to start. So find a nice book and then start finding basic ones that have little to no lookalikes, just so you can be very certain.
And a good thing to know is the difference between when you're reading a book, toxic, poisonous, and venomous, especially if you're doing animals as well. So toxic is just sort of the overarching term for something that can harm your body, whether it's inhaled, injected, etc. Poisonous is specifically if you consume it or inhale it. So if you touch something that's poisonous, it could go through your skin, but usually it's if you consume it. And then venomous is when some sort of animal or plant injects you with the toxin, and that's what hurts you. So if you're reading a book and you see those three terms, make sure that you know what they mean so that you're being as safe as you can with the plants that you're dealing with.
All right. There's also a few types of plants where they are considered edible, but you have to prepare them a certain way for them to be ideally edible. Best example I have of that is stinging nettle.
Yeah.
Fun fact, my husband jumped into a bush of stinging nettle. He's sitting right next to me. I'm calling him out. He jumped into a bush of stinging nettle. Is it a dare or something? He's confused. He doesn't remember. Anyways, jumped into a big old bush of stinging nettle. But this is one of those things where stinging nettle is an amazing medicinal plant. But if you touch it or jump into a bush of it, it hurts. It hurts
Right.
so bad. It's not fun. It's like getting needles of fiberglass stuck in you if you've ever touched a piece of
Yep.
fiberglass. Awful feeling. So just also like don't take whatever you read at extreme face value. Take it as like your first piece of information and then double check it somewhere else
Yeah.
for that reason.
So if you are looking for some easy plants, start with ones that are easy to identify and that you've seen and that you've eaten, like something easy like wild strawberries, mint, dandelions, things that you see everywhere. Don't be afraid to try something new, but only if you're absolutely positive you know what it is, because it can be dangerous if not. So starting out with really easy plants is good, and then widening your net while also being aware that it is possible that there could be things that are on those plants that you don't know about, like pesticides and insecticides, which is a really common one. If you are foraging, try not to be near a highway or other lawns, especially if the lawns look really pristine or like they've been treated. Like if there's green grass, that's treated. Green grass doesn't really exist in North America without being treated. Don't trust the green grass.
When she says green grass, she means like the golf course, freshly trimmed. Yeah. Just if you have like if your own yard is probably your best place to start for that. That's what I was talking about with the book that I have here, because you know what you're doing to it and you can decide if you're happy with what's on it. You know, if you have a pet, maybe it's gonna have some, you've got a dog, you gotta be careful with that. But you can wash stuff like that off. You can boil your herbs or steam them before using them. I wouldn't recommend that, but what the point is, you know what's on it. If you have a friend that has a big piece of land and you want to forage on it and you've asked their permission, just make sure you know exactly what they're putting on it, what they pay other people to put it on it, because a lot of people just pay for pesticides for mosquito. They get mosquito spraying. Which they might not think of that as like a lawn treatment, but it it ends up on the grass. They're spraying it in the air. So still make sure you ask important questions like that and know your area, know your location, know what they allow you to do.
If you are wanting to go somewhere else or be on somebody else's land, make sure that you're always checking what rules they have, and what regulations, because especially if you're going somewhere like a national park or a conservation management area or wildlife area, there are going to be rules and regulations about what you can and can't do, because those are protected areas. They're protected by either the state, the local government, or obviously the federal government. And they'll have different rules depending on where they are. Like national parks will have different rules than state parks. State parks will have different rules than local parks, and wildlife conservation areas will have different rules. Like make sure that you're researching and know all of the rules of the area, because you could be destroying an ecosystem without even realizing it. But it is important to remember that unless it is a protected area, you're probably not going to be destroying an ecosystem, because a lot of people will be afraid of that. But these plants and animals are used to having other animals in their area. So if you're not using sort of more modern technology to cut down a bunch of plants or kill a bunch of animals, you're not going to be destroying the ecosystem. You're going to be taking like 5 mushrooms and like 10 strawberries. Like it's not any more than the new raccoon that just got born is gonna take.
It just goes into don't take more than what you need as well. So like if you need something, like I'm thinking medicinally with all of this, not exactly just, eating a meal with it. So medicinals are a lot stronger. You're not going to use them super often. Know your season and what grows during that season, because obviously you're not going to have access to that throughout the entire year. It's just not going to happen. That's the natural way of things. But my main point with this is don't take more than you need in a single sitting. You can take a little extra if you think, if there's a ton of it, take what you need plus a tiny bit. Don't take a huge bulk amount, because there still are you don't want to eradicate it. You want it to reproduce. You want it to come back every year. So you can store up a little bit of it. If it's a real dire situation, you probably shouldn't be foraging for the medicinals anyways. So it's for more I would use it for more chronic things that are like something you're working towards over time. So you shouldn't even be taking too much anyways.
And if you are planning on taking a lot, it's okay to cultivate these plants. Like there are some really cool ways to grow mushrooms. So if you're worried about confusing toxic mushrooms, or if you're wanting to have a lot of a resource, you can cultivate these things. You don't have to just forage as well.
Right. You can forage to be able to cultivate, actually.
Yeah.
I have done quite a few of that. Here in Florida, the rules are they're actually fairly strict with taking things from any protected lands. Like all the state parks here have you can't remove anything from these parks. Especially because they're trying to protect the springs. Here we have a lot of springs that are highly managed. Can't walk on the sides of the banks. You have to stay on paths. It's fairly like you'll find it in a lot of state parks and national parks and such. But
yeah,
so I am having a hard time finding places to forage. So when I do find something, in an area that I'm familiar with, I will take a small amount, stick it in a cup of water or in dirt, depending on what the plant is. And I've tried. I'm not very good at it. I don't know Florida's herbs and edibles yet at all. I've only been here a couple months. Best way to do it, your own backyard, or find a good friend with lots of money and big amounts of land.
That's me when I'm older. Just you wait.
Okay. All right. I will wait, and I will remember that. So the concept of foraging is fairly easy to understand, but the actual application of it is what is very difficult in today's time with all the rules and the risks. And it really does become like a full-time, not job, but a full-time task that requires a lot of time and energy to be put into it for you to be really good at it. So I personally have joined a couple of Facebook groups. I actually got rejected from a plant identification Facebook group, and I'm so upset. I reapplied and they let me in. I think it was because I accidentally didn't select the box that said I'll follow your rules, but
oh, that's so funny.
It was it was kind of bad. But yeah, try to find groups you can join that post things regularly and that you can post in and say, hey, is this a medicinal? Is this an edible plant?
Yeah.
Obviously don't trust the first thing somebody says, but that'll allow you to look it up, and they'll be able to tell you, hey, that's a whatever, and then you can actually look that up. But I know Emma and I definitely are interested in using this practically in our future lives, which definitely is going to look differently for a lot of people. But oh man, oh boy, we talk about this quite often.
I love the idea, the sort of romanticized idea of just like living a foraged life. I want my little mushrooms, and I want to get berries, and even like growing corn or wheat, not like the corn that we have today, like hard corn that they grew in like colonial America.
Yeah.
Like,
like the Native American, the traditional American corn. Wait, I'm definitely a victim of like 2020 cottagecore.
Me too.
I think. I've always been it's so embarrassing to admit. I've always been interested in herbalism. That's why I'm in the path that I'm in, because actually I just not even so much for the alternative medicine side of things, but literally just because I love plants so much. I don't really like plants that aren't medicinal. I will admit it's kind of bad of me. I almost mistreat my plants that aren't medicinal. Like the poor fern on my front porch is just my peace lily hates me. My peace lily hates me, but I take really good care of my medicinals. It's kind of bad. But I am a victim of cottagecore culture. I'm sorry.
I cannot keep my herbs alive for the life of me at college right now. It's so like I'm not going to be able to be foraging for a long time in the way that I want to. Like I do sometimes go out into my woods and I'll get blueberries because we have blueberry bushes.
Are they wild blueberries or did you guys plant them?
Yeah, we have wild blueberries. We also have planted
amazing.
raspberries and blackberries.
Oh yeah,
But
I
we
want to
have
do.
wild blueberries all around.
Have you ever thought about doing chaos gardening?
Yes, I'm actually doing that um with my friend Melissa this summer. Her and her daughter are have these big flower beds, and we're gonna
Oh,
try experimenting with some chaos and regenerative gardening. We're
oh
really
my
excited about
gosh.
it.
That is so much fun. I am very interested in like guerrilla gardening too.
Me too.
I'm tempted, but I know how rigorously the places I would want to do it at manicure their lawns. So
Yeah.
anything that I would guerrilla plant would just get whoosh, chopped down. Like they mow their stupid grass like every week, so that nothing I would plant would even grow past a sprout. It kind of stinks. But I do really wish that I could find a way to sneak some stuff in there.
I didn't even realize this, but it's Earth Day, and if I think next Friday.
I
So
thought it was this Saturday.
perfect episode. No, it's this Monday, next Monday.
What?
But yeah, we have my school is doing an event on Friday, and like it's a whole like week long Earth Week thing. But like it's culminating to Friday. I'm in the Earth Week mind.
We're in the earth, yeah.
Yeah. And guerrilla gardening was one thing that I suggested we do. Like we hand out little wildflower seeds, native wildflower seeds, and everybody can go
Mhm.
around and guerrilla garden, and that would be one of the little events. So
That would
this is
be
kind of like
so
the perfect
cool.
episode for Earth Week or
It
Earth
kind of
Day.
is. I
And it's
didn't even
gonna air
realize
on
it.
Earth Day.
Oh my gosh. So it's not exactly related to foraging. Don't leave yet because Emma and I know this is why I said that I'm a victim of cottagecore culture, because I really really want to have a homestead style household
Mm-hmm.
when I settle, and I think Emma agrees.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. And we're like in the process of convincing both her boyfriend and my husband to just give in. Let us have bees. Let us have cows. Let us, what do you want? What did you want specifically?
What do I
Your
want? Well, I
mushroom
really
farm.
like bees. Oh yeah, mushrooms.
Yeah.
Anything animals. Like I feel like
Yeah.
any sort of way, like a little pond, like a real pond with
Yes.
real fish.
Yes.
Not like throwing your koi in there, like, oh, look at this
Right. Like an
fish. No,
actual,
real fish.
yeah,
And like real little
that would be
little
amazing.
frogs and birds and yeah.
That's amazing. That would be, and we were kind of thinking along the lines of like if you live closer to each other, like one of us could do the gardening farm work kind of stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
the other one could do the livestock and whatever we're good at respectively.
Yeah. Or a little bit of both, if
Or a
both of
little bit of
us.
both. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
I really want bees, but we can share the bees. It's not really a big deal.
We can I'll you can we can both have bees and share honey and have contests to see whose is better.
This honey is better. Oh my gosh. That's a dangerous road to go down. A honey competition. This is how big business gets corrupted. Okay, they cut corners. Okay, so no. I'm wagging my finger at her.
We basically want to be Animal Farm before the corruption. I'm just kidding. Don't actually put that in.
Oh no. Wait, so then it's not Animal Farm, it's just Animal Farm, but like
Yeah.
an actual animal farm. That doesn't make any sense.
So basically, Parker will have her little house, and
Mm.
then I'll have my little house, and they'll be like apart, and then all of the land in between and like around we will use for our little homestead.
Yes.
Yes. So
We're
that
still trying to convince the men.
yes, it's always about convincing the men.
It really
They're
kind of
not
is.
smart enough to realize how good of an idea this is.
They're small little feeble brains, even though
Small
they're
little
both
brains.
they're both wicked smart.
Oh,
Horribly smart.
shut up. We're
I know.
smarter. Are they going to
Yeah.
grad school? I don't freaking think so. I don't think so. I
No.
don't think so.
Will they make more than us? Yes.
Most definitely.
Most likely.
That's so frustrating though. Like
Mhm.
it's so frustrating. Both of us are going to have our doctorate degrees.
Yep.
And that, yeah, they're gonna be making so much more.
Yeah. I will only make more if I also have like a wildly successful business because it'll be mostly self-employment for like the latter
Right.
half of it because I want to work for a company at the beginning to get good at it and then switch to doing things for myself. Um I will only succeed in beating him in the wage gap situation if I am a successful business owner, which terrifies me. Which is why we need to build a homestead so I have a fail safe.
Yes.
So I
And
can
we can sell our vegetables on the side of the road, and that's where we'll make our money.
yippee. Yes. This is where the practical side of the foraging goes because then if you live on a nice enough chunk of land or if you live near state parks or areas that allow you to forage, you can just go out in the woods and hunt stuff down. I would
Yeah.
love to be able to do that on a regular basis.
That would be so cool.
All right. So, if you are into foraging or wanting to get into foraging, the next little piece of information we got here is going to be based on where you're at. So, we're talking about foraging today, but if you are buying things online or from local stores, there is absolutely no shame in that because that's how you learn what things look like and how to prepare them as well. There's no shame in buying things online as long as you're making sure it's ethically sourced. Third party tested is also a big old plus.
Oh,
Certified
yeah.
organic is pretty great too because that means it is third party tested anyways, even if it doesn't explicitly say that it is, because it still requires quite a rigorous amount of testing to become certified organic.
Yeah.
So, that being said, here are some of my tinctures. These are the only ones I have here are ones that I've made myself. I have a bunch of other ones, but I got quite a few. So yesterday, I went to a local herb shop because some of my classmates from school were going because we're going to be making some tinctures in class because I'm in an herbology and botany class right now. It's kind of fun. So we went there to get some ingredients and I got white willow bark. Can't exactly see
Wow.
it super well. I'm holding stuff up for those of you who do not have visuals. The white willow bark is what aspirin was originally made out of. And now it's
Wow.
been synthetically derived, but I would rather start with the actual white willow bark because it has a wider range of anti-inflammatory properties and it's not going to specifically dive in and attack one area. So it's, using an herb is a well-rounded sort of thing. Emma, have you ever, I mean, you know what aspirin is, right? You've
Yeah,
taken
yeah.
aspirin. Yeah, yeah.
I
That
actually
was
have
a dumb
never taken
question.
aspirin.
Oh my gosh. Wait, actually, is that like true?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you serious?
Never taken aspirin.
That's
Yeah.
wild. I feel like everybody has taken like I just for some reason thought everybody's taken aspirin at some point.
So in my family, there is a blood clotting disorder that runs in our family.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom takes aspirin every day to help with that because it's
Oh.
supposed to
Yeah, people,
reduce
yeah.
blood clotting. But we've always stuck to ibuprofen and Tylenol because, well, we originally did ibuprofen, but we've recently switched to Tylenol because we all have stomach issues. Do you want to explain what a tincture is for the
Oh,
audience?
yeah, you
Because I
know
was just
what?
realizing that
That
might be a
make
good idea.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna back it up a little bit. If you guys have never heard of the term tincture, it's essentially an infusion, which means that you're just soaking something in alcohol, oil, glycerin for an extended period of time, or infusing it by using heat. So I actually have an infusion machine that infuses stuff in like 2 hours. It's made for marijuana, but your girl uses it for other stuff.
That's so funny.
Yeah, my mom got it
And
for me
also
for like my
marijuana,
13th birthday.
just
Yeah.
Josh's. For
Maybe,
those
I
who
don't
can't
know.
see, we're hardcore winking.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know
Oh
if she
yeah.
uses it for marijuana, but we are not going to expose ourselves.
No. I do not. I do not. Just for I actually don't. Not yet. But a tincture is just I like to do alcohol tinctures because and long-term alcohol tinctures, so without using heat, so that this is a tincture I have that's been going for quite a while now. It's in a big jar. You're not supposed to put tinctures in clear glass. You're supposed to put it in amber glass like this one to protect the nutrients of it, the phytochemicals, because sunlight, sun exposure can diminish certain chemical properties of herbs. So this one I've had going since like October of 2023. And it's chamomile, and I've just left it soaking. I do 1 part herb, 1 part alcohol so that it can be fairly strong. So it's just a lot about ratio. So you have a dried herb and some kind of alcohol, oil, or glycerin. I do alcohol almost consistently. Although, this is the tricky part with tinctures, is you have to know what percentage of alcohol to use with a certain herb. So I was doing Everclear before. So like the one I showed you right there is just straight Everclear, which is 190 proof. If you can't buy 190 proof in a lot of states, so I have this Florida purchased one, and this one's 151. That's actually too strong for dried herbs. If you're using fresh, you can use a higher percentage or higher proof of alcohol. If you're using dried herbs, you go lower. So just look up your ratios, look up the type of plant. Just know that if you're using dried, like my white willow here, I'm going to make a tincture out of, and I'm also going to just keep some for tea. And I also have calendula that I grew. I didn't forage, I grew my little calendulas. And I've made tinctures and infused oils out of those to just use practically every once in a while. But I mean, these are pretty small amounts. Like this is from a local shop. You don't need too much to make a tincture. So if you are getting foraged items and you don't have that much, a tincture is the best way to go because it extracts the most out of your plant. And, you get a pretty decent sized bottle that'll last you a lot longer than making teas. Because if I were to make, 1 bag of this, we'll make like 4 bottles of this. And I think this is a 4-ounce bottle. 4, 6, 4. I'm going to go with 4 ounces. I don't really know. I can't do measurements. But yeah, so that's some stuff you can do whether you forage it or not. If you're foraging your items, definitely make tinctures and not teas because they're stronger and you get more for your money. And then know your alcohol types. I use the cheapest vodka I can find. You can use whiskey and brandy as well. I wouldn't exactly recommend tequila because it is a probiotic, and I'm not sure how that would work with a lot of plants, especially fresh ones. So just look that stuff up. But this is some practical ways that you can use what you get.
The willow bark, you said it has the same a synthesized version is used for aspirin. I'm wondering, do you know if there's any research about tinctures or teas being used as a preventative for cancer? Because aspirin can prevent cancer if you take like an aspirin a day.
I've heard the aspirin a day thing for preventing cardiovascular disease, but I've never actually heard of that applied to cancer. But the general way that it works, like if you look in any of these herbal medicine books, you'll just read anti-inflammatory, antiseptic, anti-inflammatory, antiseptic, it's just the main name of the game here is most of them will lower your inflammation levels, and this is the main constituent of the white willow. Lowers inflammation. It's anti-inflammatory. So if it's lowering inflammation and inflammation causes cells to act abnormally, then I would assume, I haven't read any explicit research on the white willow specifically for cancer, but I know there is a lot on cardiovascular disease. And if you're doing things to prevent cardiovascular disease, that usually transfers into preventing cancer because these diseases are kind of interrelated. It's similar to the fact that if you have 2 people, one of them has cardiovascular disease and one of them has diabetes, you change and they both have bad diets. If you change it to a quote unquote better diet and it's the same better diet for both of them, it can potentially reverse the onset of disease in both people, even though they have different diseases, just because you're lowering inflammation. So
that's
if
really
you're
interesting.
Yeah, that's why I was curious to see if maybe she would tolerate something like white willow a little bit better as a preventative issue, just because it's not as direct with its action. Is it something that she's been diagnosed for to actually need to take the aspirin every day, or is it just because of family history?
She's been diagnosed with the blood clotting disorder. She takes the aspirin because her mom wants her to, because it has been like it has correlated with preventing the disease.
Right.
And so her mom's like, yeah, you should take it so you don't die, because her mom's just scared for her.
That's fair. There's a lot of that. Yeah. Okay, because I don't actually know much about. So it's an issue with like clotting factor specifically?
Yeah, so
the clotting factors cascade?
Yeah.
It's
She,
interesting. Right.
I know,
I know
yeah,
exactly what you're talking about. I just can't remember exactly which part of a person
me
it
too.
impacts. I think
Yeah,
it's the
that's what
clotting
I,
cascade, kind of similar. It's the opposite of a hemophiliac.
yes.
I know what you're talking about. Doesn't matter. I think I'm going to look it up after this, but I do think that this might white willow might be a good thing to try instead of aspirin because aspirin's very direct in its actions.
I think it's
Yep. Don't tell her this.
thrombophilia,
Thrombophilia.
an imbalance in naturally occurring blood clotting proteins. But now I
Yeah,
have it
that's
and my
interesting.
sister has it too,
Weird.
most
I
likely.
mean, not weird. I know that's genetic. I'm just trying to think. Do you take aspirin every day for the same reason?
No, I do
Oh
not
wait, you
take
just said
aspirin.
you just said you'd never taken
Yeah.
it. So what are you will you have to eventually?
If I ever want to take hormonal birth control or get pregnant, then I would have to get tested. Because, well, so my mom's homozygous and my dad, we don't know. So when you're talking about genetic disorders, a lot of the times there are two alleles, which are just areas of the chromosome that portray the phenotype. The phenotype is the outward appearance of the genes. So if you have one chromosome, you have sister chromosomes that come together, and one chromosome is from the dad and one chromosome is from the mom. And if both of the chromosomes have the genetic disorder, then that's called homozygous for the genetic disorder. If one has the gene for the genetic disorder and one doesn't, then that's heterozygous. But it can also affect how aggressively it's portrayed. So if you're homozygous, it might be more aggressively portrayed than if you're heterozygous, but that's not always the case. It depends on the genetic disorder. But in this case, if you're homozygous, it's more aggressively portrayed and you have more of a likelihood of developing the disorder or developing blood clots.
So essentially, you're just saying that you know that you do have it, you just don't know if it's the aggressive or the less aggressive type.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's interesting. I know this goes off the topic of foraging and homesteading quite a bit, but I mean, this is why it's important to look into herbal remedies just to see, if it's an option for
Mhm.
you. Because with something like that, where you want to prevent things for a very long time, it is not exactly sustainable to, be doing ibuprofen every single day of your life as a preventative. If you're actually suffering from headaches and some kind of pain, sure, but like that's one of my main interests in herbal remedies is to, if you're worried about developing something with family history, to take these preventative steps. I know it sounds like we kind of went on a rant there, but the idea of using what you have to prevent and to make yourself into or give yourself a better quality of life is really really important for what we enjoy talking about. So
Mhm.
it's important to know that what we're doing or what you would be doing with foraging is just another piece in the puzzle when it comes to creating a more well-rounded life.
Right. And just foraging in general gives you a more diverse nutritional profile. It keeps you active. It overall just sort of leads back to the way that our bodies are built to interact with the world. So moving in that direction of trying to bring yourself, sort of bringing together modern technology and being able to still have connections with the way that our bodies are meant to interact with nature is
Mm-hmm.
really important. So foraging and stuff like that really just provides you with one of the first big steps in moving towards a more sustainable lifestyle,
Right.
both for you and the planet.
It helps you learn how to eat seasonally as
Yeah,
well.
which
Because
is really important.
like we said, things aren't always available. So if you learn to adapt to what you actually have available, then you're more likely to be eating within a good range of healthy options because the other stuff isn't available.
Yeah.
And then, that's why certain foods grow during certain seasons is because that's what you're supposed to be eating during that time in that geographical area. So I mean, that's why you get all the heavier, starchier foods during fall and winter. Like that's when you harvest during fall and winter is all the starchy,
Right.
heavy things because you're not going to be eating as much during that, or you're not going to have as much growing time. It's just a matter of foraging is, like Emma said, a good step towards becoming more. It sounds like the iffy I'm sorry, not iffy. The like more spiritual kind of. You got to be in tune with the earth. You got to be in tune with the universe and the planets.
no.
I'm sorry.
Biologically,
I know.
evolutionarily.
Yes. I'm saying it sounds like the
Yeah.
spiritual, overly spiritual-esque kind of side of things, and I'm not mocking that at all. It sounds funny to say it, but it really does make you more in tune with nature as a whole. And your body's part of nature, so why would you try to go away from that? That's where we get all our disease from.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. We had so much fun creating this episode, and we hope you enjoy it as much as we do.
If you'd like to learn more, follow us on Instagram at studentsparks.ep, where we'll post all kinds of information and episode updates.
Don't forget to check in every other week to learn more about what it is like to be a student of neuroscience
and naturopathy.